shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
Good morning and welcome. Thank you, Nick. I'm Reverend G, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church on Shaver Road in Portage. That's where our physical building is located at. However, we are still meeting online for the time being. And as if that changes and when that changes, we will be sure to announce it loud and wide. Thank you for joining us this morning on this dreary October-like, really, very October-like, fall, wet morning. Thank you for deciding to spend this time with us, with a community that has no dogmas, a community that focuses on that which we have in common, and a community that is committed to searching for the truth. And wherever Unitarian Universalists are gathered and come together to do church, they light the chalice, as do we. And will you please say the words with me? In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. And now, I invite you to close your eyes and join me for a short time in centering meditation. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, relax. Take another deep breath. And as you exhale, relax even more. Another deep breath. And as you exhale, relax completely. And just notice breath in breath out. Only presence in this moment. Breath in and breath out. And allow for your chest to open, for your heart to expand. Allow yourself to just be. No expectations, no judgment, just pure beingness. No beginning, no end. This eternal present moment. And from your heart, bring forth kindness, gentleness, compassion. And from your mind, release expectations, judgments, attachment to outcomes. Give yourself over to allowing and being. And we give thanks that we can peel away from the business of thinking, the business of doing, and we can open ourselves and give ourselves over to allowing and being kindly, gently, and effortlessly. And for that, together we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And as you are ready, I invite you to open your eyes and return your attention to the screen. If you are only joining us now, I'm Reverend G, minister at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church. Our physical building is located on Shaver Road, and I'm glad that you chose to join us this morning. I am also glad that we have a community where our people just show up as they are needed. And we are all needed, and especially in these days when we do church differently, and we need Zoom tech and Facebook tech and tech. And so thank you for Kimberly and Lauren. Thank you for showing up, and for Miriam, always making sure that things are going smoothly, and Nick for warming us up and taking us to church with your music that is always appropriate, always heartfelt, and in tune with the message of the day. I'm grateful to every single one of you who are making this church experience, this gathering, this community still possible, in spite of the dictates of today, where a virus is rampant, and we need to socially distance and be sure to wear a mask. So thank you for joining us. Allow me to read you a story from the Old Testament. It is the 12th chapter, and it's found in the book of Judges. This is the New International Version translation. The Ephraimite forces were called out, and they crossed over to Zaphon. They said to Jephthah, "Why did you go to fight the Ammonites without calling us to go with you? We're going to burn down your house over your head." Jephthah answered, "I and my people were engaged in a great struggle with the Ammonites, and although I called, you didn't save me out of their hands. When I saw that you wouldn't help, I took my life in my hands and crossed over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord gave me the victory over them. Now, why have you come up today to fight me?" Jephthah then called together the men of Gilead and fought against Ephraim. The Gileadites struck them down because the Ephraimites had said, "You Gileadites are renegades from Ephraim and Manasseh." The Gileadites captured the fords of the Jordan leading to Ephraim, and whenever a survivor of Ephraim said, "Let me cross over," the men of Gilead asked him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he replied no, they said, "All right, say Shibboleth." If they said Sibboleth, because he could not pronounce the word correctly, they seized him and killed him at the fords of the Jordan. 42,000 Ephraimites were killed at that time. 42,000 Ephraimites. So picture this. Back in the day, this is before the Israelites have decided to elect a king. There's 12 tribes of Israelites. These are all family. They're all descendants from the same genetical pool. They have the same ancestors. They're all Jews. They look alike. They have different dialects, obviously, but they're brothers and sisters. 12 different tribes. They occupied this land that they call Israel. And, they are surrounded by other people, such as Ammonites, Canaanites, so on and so forth. And every now and then, they go to war against each other. They go to war because, either the religion dictates or it's resource grabbing. They are grabbing land, resources, and free labor. And really, these are the only two kinds of reasons humanity has ever gone to war for, either over religious differences or to grab resources. And resources are not necessarily only material, physical, they are people as well. And those resources are known as slave, the people resources. So there are these two tribes, the Gileadites and the Ephraimites, and they have a pact. If somebody attacks me, I come and help you. If somebody attacks you, I come and help you, because united, we have a better chance of winning against the enemy. And it happens. The Ammonites are attacking the Gileadites. So the Gileadites, Jephthah, who is a judge, so it's judges that rule over these tribes, because remember, there's no king. There's no king to unite all the tribes on the one kingdom. So the tribes are ruled by so-called judges. And Jephthah is one of the judges who, at this time, is ruling the Gileadites. He ruled for 7 years, I believe, 6 or 7 years. And the Ammonites are a great threat to the Gileadites. And so it's alluded in this that Jephthah sends word to the Ephraimites, "Hey, the Ammonites are about to attack us. Please come help like you promised." But there's no answer from the Ephraimites. So Gileadites go, and there's this great struggle with the Ammonites, and they win. But now there's a problem. And the problem is that the Ephraimites have lost face. They did not hold up their end of the bargain. So instead of going to Jephthah and the Gileadites and say, hey, sorry, we couldn't do it. We had our own issues. We couldn't do it because whatever the reason, they do something twisted. They go there and they say, hey, why didn't you call us? You went alone to fight. Don't you know we have a pact? Why didn't you call us? Now we're going to burn down your houses. They are trying to gain the upper hand. It's like it's your fault that we couldn't. We really would have come. We really would have helped, but we couldn't because you didn't let us know. And now we're late to the party. Well, now we are angry. And Jephthah says, oh, no. I called you, but you wouldn't come. I had to take care of it myself. Now you come and pick a fight with me. So they fight, the Gileadites and the Ephraimites. And the Gileadites win. And what they do, they go to the river Jordan, which separates the two lands, the Gileadites and the Ephraimites. They go and they occupy the fords. So the place where Ephraimites could cross to go home to their territory. And the Gileadites are standing armed at these crossing places. And then an Ephraimite would come up to them and say, hey, are you an Ephraimite? And some said yes, they would be killed on the spot. Then the ones who saw, oh, if you say you're an Ephraimite, you'd be killed. So it's a good thing not to say you're an Ephraimite if you want to live. But wait, there's more, because the Gileadites have another trick up their sleeves. They know how to identify an Ephraimite. Say a word, Shibboleth, which means either running river. It doesn't matter what it means. The meaning is not important. What is important that the Ephraimites and the Gileadites have different dialects. And you see, I'm a foreigner, so I'm Hungarian. And when I was growing up and I spoke Hungarian, there were certain muscles in my tongue and my mouth that I had to use to form the sounds that Hungarians make. And those are the toned and trained muscles in my mouth. So when I speak English, I have an accent and I can't help it because the muscles that English speakers train and tone are slightly different than what Hungarian speakers train and tone. So I speak with an accent. And if you were to speak Hungarian, you'd have a very heavy accent as well, because you're not used to pronouncing and making the sounds that we Hungarians do. Well, that was true for Gileadites and Ephraimites as well. Gileadites were very good to make the sound sh. So they told, therefore, to the Ephraimites, say the word Shibboleth. But the Ephraimites could not say the word sh. Instead, they pronounced it Sibboleth. Can you hear the difference? Shibboleth and Sibboleth. So poor Ephraimites would say Sibboleth, and they'd be killed on the spot. 42,000 of them were killed in a very short time. What a tragedy. So this is two people. They are descendants of the same Jewish heritage. They're all Jews. By looks, they cannot tell each other apart. The only way to tell each other apart is by dialect, is by how you pronounce a word. And they demonize each other so much that one Jew ends up killing the other Jew on the spot, no problem. This is the story of Immaculée. Immaculée was a Tutsi young woman. And in Rwanda, there were two prominent tribes. and are two prominent tribes, the Tutsis and the Hutus. And the Tutsis tended to be the aristocracy, the ruling, um, the ruling layer. They tended to be more better educated, better jobs, higher paying jobs, and the Hutus tended to be more of the laborers, the servants, lower paying jobs. And so you could say that the Hutu and Tutsi genocide was caused by this inequity, by this imbalance of power. If you were a Hutu, you were railroaded to be of a servant class, of a hard laborer class. And if you were a Tutsi, then the systems were skewed and they were in your favor. And you would end up being part of the ruling class. You would get the better paying job. You would be superior to the Hutus. So the Hutus decided to exterminate the Tutsis, and they did. They did it low tech with machetes and sticks that had nails sticking out of them, and they would bludgeon people to death with that. Immaculée was a Tutsi girl, and one day she was walking on a hill, and she looked, there was a valley, and there was another hill in the distance, and she heard screams, and she looked over there, and she saw that a man was using his machete to cut off another human being. And she looked there and she thought, what is happening? This was the beginning. And she went home, and pretty soon the genocide gained steam, and the Hutus were massacring the Tutsis in great numbers. So Immaculée's father advised Immaculée to run 3 miles to this Hutu minister's house, who they were personal friends with, and ask him to hide her. She did just that. She thought she'd be hidden for 4 or 5 days, but she ended up for 3 months in a small bathroom, 3 feet by 4 feet, with 6 other women, 7 of them, for 3 months in this bathroom. During the 3 months, she lost 1/3 of her body weight. She said, I looked at my hand, I looked at my body, and I realized, oh, this is what we learned in anatomy class. This is what the human skeleton looks like. She was 65 pounds when she walked out of that bathroom. They all survived, those 7 of them, even though twice the Hutus came looking for them, because several people saw her and these other 6 women entering the minister's house, but they didn't see them exiting. On one occasion, one of the Hutus put his hand on the bathroom door to open it, and ended up not opening it. And then the second time when they came, the minister pushed a cupboard in front of the door, and they didn't see that there was a door. So these women survived. For 3 months, they never showered. They didn't have clothes, a change of clothes. They could only flush the toilet when the other toilet in the house was being flushed, because they couldn't give their presence away. The minister kept it secret from his own children, that these women were in the house. He was afraid because children, they don't intend to harm anyone, but sometimes they tell things that they shouldn't be. The second time when the Hutus came, there was one person who was looking in particular for Immaculée. He said, I have slain 399 of these cockroaches, meaning the Tutsis, and I want Immaculée to be the 400th. He was a neighbor with whom they ate before together. They went to school together. And in fact, the person who killed his parents and his brothers was her teacher. And in those 3 months, Immaculée went through a tremendous transformation. She went from fear, of course. Fear was a constant companion. But then there came anger. There came rage. And then an opening of the heart and forgiveness. She ended up forgiving the Hutu killers. No one from her family survived. Her father's body was used as a roadblock. Tremendous story, tremendous pain. I find it's amazing what we human beings can do. And it begins by speaking of the other. First of all, determining that someone else is the other, and then dehumanizing them, calling them cockroaches, snakes. In Rwanda, on TV and radio, there were these calls by the Hutus who would say, go, kill a Tutsi snake. And if you find a woman, you must kill her on the spot. And if she has a baby, then be sure to finish off the baby, because a snake, whether it's small, even if it's small, it grows up to be a big snake. So dehumanizing them and then killing them. Of course, Hutus were also promised that if they kill the Tutsis, they will get banana plantations and they will get property, which they didn't. They got prison time because eventually the French came and established order. And of course, we all know what happened in Nazi Germany. The Jews were exterminated as well in concentration camps in large numbers. We are capable of tremendous cruelty, and we are able to act as if we have no conscience, and as if doing such acts of cruelty would not impact us in any way, that they have no consequences to the tomorrows of our lives. And then, of course, as I have mentioned, people, humans, go to war for two reasons. They're either religious or resource grabbing, land, minerals, and or whatever resources are in that land that another party wants, another country wants, another people wants, and then free labor. We call them slaves. That's the word for that. And of course, this country, our country, had done that. This is part of our heritage. This is undeniable. It's there. And it has far-reaching consequences. Even though slavery has ended, and the only way we could enslave the African Americans, if we made them other, it was okay. They are less than white people. They're not as intelligent. Their bodies were built for hard labor. They don't have the same needs as white people, nor the same capabilities. They must be hard laborers. And then the twist came that the whites justified it with religion. Well, God said so. Look at the New Testament. There were slaves there. It is meant to be that way, that some people are masters, some people are slaves. Well, then came the Civil War. We ended revolution. Little by little, we started introducing more and more rights for the African Americans, but one thing never disappeared, this sense of otherness. And so today we have a country that is divided, that the same laws do not apply the same way to blacks and whites, or whites and browns and reds, and not the same laws apply. There's inequity here. There's no justice here. And Maya Angelou said, you know, the only way to overcome this and to change this is to see the other as mine. And then once I see them as mine, a sense of responsibility emerges. How am I going to treat this one who's mine? And if it's mine, I usually want the very best for them. And then the other also has to look at me and think, oh, she's mine. They are mine. And with that comes the responsibility of wanting only the very best for them. So it's a sense of like, I own them. We're all one here. We all belong with each other. The sense of otherness has to dissipate. That's what we need to eliminate. The way I see it, there's two aspects of injustice, of racial injustice. One is how we treat each other, or racial injustice or justice. How we treat each other on a personal level. Do we treat each other kindly, with respect? And then how are the systems created? Are the systems allowing for equal possibilities for the different races? So one is the personal relationship, and the other one is the systems. So that's why we call it systemic problems or systemic changes needed, or there's systemic redemption, you know. So here's the personal one. I'm not a racist. I have a friend, he's black. We as a country are not racist. We elected a black president, for crying out loud. What are you talking about? All these things have been done away. Look at that. Black president, right there. That's the final, most ultimate proof. And the problem is that in this country, we mixed the two. We are pretending as if the two were equal. That just because I have a black friend, because I happen to like a black person, I have maybe even a black spouse, or I go to a gym that's owned by a black owner, or you name it. Therefore, there are no problems here. There cannot be problems here. So we cannot confuse the personal with the systemic. So perhaps if we really had to choose, and I envision a life and the future where we don't have to choose between this one being right and this one being right, the systemic and the personal. So we personally relate as if all the blacks were mine. And then the systemic, where it's equal, that everybody has the same opportunities to climb the same possibilities to better their lives, to get education, to get health care, to improve, to make sure that the next generation does better than the previous generation. It's that thing that whites have had in this country for so long. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't whites, again, that are impoverished. But the system in general favors the whites. So I read somewhere that in the 1970 graduating class here in this country, so across the country, 1970, whoever graduated, blacks, 70% of the males were at one point in time were locked up. So 1970s graduating class, 70% of them, African Americans, were locked up. Now try to convince them that there's not a systemic problem. There is a systemic problem, and we cannot confuse the two. Just because I like an African American, I have an African American friend, the system is skewed. So that's precisely what we need to change. The system must change first, and it changes in those important rooms where political decisions are made. So the conversations there, therefore, matter. It matters what kinds of people we send into these rooms where decisions are made, because think about the different conversations that can be engaged in these rooms. One, okay, let's look at the system. Let's see how the systems we have in place discriminate against African Americans, and then how can we change them to create equity, to create justice. Or we can have another conversation engaged. All right, so we had to free the slaves, the African Americans, but how can we put systems in place where they are no longer called slaves, but the conditions resemble much that of the slavery? How could we make sure that their votes would be discouraged, that maybe they couldn't vote? How could we make sure that we still get free labor, but it's not called slavery anymore? And then if that's the conversation we engage, our creativity will start engaging as well, and we will come up with those systems that will make sure that African Americans, though they are no longer called slaves, will live in conditions that resemble slavery, where they still cannot vote, where their labor is pretty much free, where they are kept down, where they belong. So therefore, it is incumbent upon us to vote in a way where we send people who will engage the conversation that will bring about social justice and systemic change, because there is a price, there is a cost. There is a cost to being oppressed, and there is a cost to being the oppressor. Neither is good. That is not the relationship that we ought to be engaged in, because we all pay a tremendous price. We all have a consciousness, and some of us end up being angry, needing to forgive because we're being oppressed. And then the oppressor also has to do some weird emotional gymnastics to justify why it's okay to oppress. It is not a good place for anybody to be. So it is my hope and wish that we no longer confuse the personal with the systemic, that we understand that we're very capable of doing heinous acts of, genocide, of murder, that's in us. It's that can be engaged with the right rhetoric. So we must stay away from that rhetoric. We must discourage that rhetoric at any chance we get, because that can be awakened in everybody. Do not mix the personal with the systemic, and then send people to these important rooms where decisions are made who will change the system so it's balanced. That is my hope. That is my wish. And I love it that we can be in this together. And so it is. And now, if you're joining us now again, I'm Reverend G, and I'm delighted that you're here. And you will hear another beautiful song by Nick. And I also invite you to please support our community. Support it with your dollars so our message can have a reach far and wide and powerful. And so justice can prevail. So truth can be unearthed and put on a pedestal and let it shine. So join us. Join us in this life together. Support us. And I thank you for that. Nick, take it away.
Well, I learned as a child there's two ways to see the world as it is and the way it could be. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. They see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the way blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon. And they do what must be done. Some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. I've seen the toll taken, the tears that were shed. I've seen the journey started and the ripples spread. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. They see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the way blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon and they do what must be done. Some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. Some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the way on that long road to freedom, and they do what must be done. They see the way on that long road to freedom, and they do what must be done. They see the way on that long road to freedom, and they do what must be done.
Do what must be done. Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for inspiring us, for showing up. Will you join me as we extinguish the chalice? And will you say the words with me? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Do what must be done. Show up. Do the right thing. Think of the other as mine. And let us all take the best care of each other, regardless of our gender, color, social status, sexual orientation. No otherness here, only oneness. And so it is. Thank you for joining us. See you next week.